The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Ashley Koff RD's webinar, Better Travel Nutrition Fuels Better Health on the Road. We're excited to have Bill Keith, the founder and CEO of Perfect Bar, as our guest today. If you have any questions, please send them in via the chat box. And if you want to check out the webinar at a later date, you'll find it on Ashley's website and her YouTube channel. Right, over to you, Ashley.
Great, and I think I'm going to get it started in the sponsors, but I think we're also doing a giveaway today. Is that right?
We are doing a giveaway. Yes, there's going to be $75 worth of prizes given. So if anyone wants to, when this is up on Facebook and on YouTube, if people want to comment in the comment bar, I will be asking questions, and there'll be some lucky winners will get the prize. Thank you, Ashley.
Oh, awesome. Well, I just said that because I told people, I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys, because everybody knows how obsessed I am with Perfect Bars. I was like, this is what you want to do, so you can win. Anyway, traveling for me is like, it is a job, but it is also this wonderful opportunity. And when I started, I was traveling for work long before I was a dietitian, and it makes me sound very old. But you know, one of the things that I was so aware of was twofold. Obviously, if you're traveling for work, you want to arrive to your meeting and be on your A game and bring it in your workspace. And oftentimes I would find that didn't happen, especially for me earlier on. It was more digestively related or sleep related. But then the other side of it is I would find that I would be gone for, 3 or 4 days for work, and then I would come home on the weekend and just be so fatigued, or just feel like I had to do everything on the weekend to get my health back in order so that I was in good space to start the week again. And that made me feel like I missed out on a lot of, or chose to miss out, I guess, on a lot of opportunities. And so when I started traveling for work as a dietitian, I was like, okay, how am I going to make this work? Especially early on in my career, I was really fortunate. I was working with Good Morning America with their health program and doing segments traveling all over the world, as well as within this country, to bring going to the source, to bring stories about our food. And what you wanted to do was make sure that you didn't just feel good when you were there, but that you had your better nutrition also would bring you home feeling better. And so I became obsessed with better travel nutrition, fueling my better health out on the road, certainly if it was for vacation, as well as if it was for work. And I know so many people, so many of you listening are on the go these days. And what I want to say starting off may sound silly, but I'm going to say it, which is if you travel like once or twice a year and it's primarily for fun, or if it's not that fun and it's like taking the family, to other family for the holidays or whatever can be stressful, if you do any of that, don't worry too much about all of this, because, I do think that there are things that we can all be conscious of and should be thinking about when we're traveling. But what I wanted to talk about today is also the notion of, when I say the word travel and better travel nutrition, it's also just about the fact that we are on the go traveling to and from our offices, to and from kids' schools, to and from, visiting relatives and all this other stuff. So think of it, travel as short distances, things that we do on a daily basis, or longer trips that we take. But if it's your one vacation, forget all of this and just enjoy yourself. So as always, I want to thank my webinar series sponsors, Manitoba Harvest, Natural Vitality, True Brock, and Nature's Path, all of whom are total partners for me in better nutrition on the road. But when it came to actually talking about better travel nutrition, I traveled to Southern California from a part of Southern California. I was in LA and I went down to San Diego pretty much the moment that I met Bill Keith and I met my Perfect Bar about 10 years ago, because I was so passionate about this delicious product. And it was the deliciousness. I had a lot of bars at that point. It was, sort of the height of what I thought might be the height of the bar space, only to realize, wow, there was so much higher it would go. And I just hadn't enjoyed a lot of what I had to consume, and I didn't enjoy it in terms of the nutrition as well as the taste. And so we're going to be talking about that piece. So without further ado, I am grateful to have this webinar sponsored by Perfect Bar, and you are going to get to meet Bill Keith, the founder. When we interview him, I'm going to talk about how can we actually travel better. And Bill's got to have a lot of tips because he was out on the road with his family. He's got 13 siblings, and they all now have various children and partners and everything else. So I am sure they have more tips on travel than many that we can use. And first, I'll just walk us through so that we're all on the same page about how travel impacts our health, and also what really is better travel nutrition. So I will do that, and then Bill, we'll have you jump in. So we all want better health. It's not like anybody wants better travel nutrition, but we want the outcome of better travel nutrition. And why do we want that? Well, when it comes to travel, it creates its own stress. So it can be great stress. You can be traveling somewhere totally awesome. It can be exciting. It can be you might be going somewhere to do something you've never done before, hiking or biking, those sorts of things. And but we also know that there can be the bad stress, the unexpected delays, the thinking, I saw a woman the other day who had packed, she was traveling by herself with 2 kids. She'd packed all of this stuff for them, and then she had packed just for herself a plain Greek yogurt. And everybody stopped her when they went through the security, and they're pulling all of her things apart. And she's like, what? I don't have, there's no water in the baby's bottle, and the kids were being great and everything. I was pissed. I was like, what is going on for this woman? And they made her throw away her yogurt. And I just wanted to cry. I was like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk over, and, we found her a replacement. But, even despite our best efforts with the security and everything else these days, there can be a lot of stress. And so what we need to do is make sure we're addressing that part. And certainly travel does limit your control over better nutrition options. We're in a much better space these days with what we can bring and also with what's available in a lot of travel places. But, having just taken a road trip through the Southeast here, that we're also not always in a place where there's any better nutrition options, or I should say I felt that they were much more limited. And then the other thing is traveling really changes your activity, your daily activity, which is going to affect your entire body. And I don't just mean that that's sitting. In fact, one of the things that I've actually found with a lot of my patients who travel is they are often extremely active when they're traveling. Maybe they're traveling for activity reasons, but we have to be careful to make sure that if your travel home is a flight or a train or a road trip, that you're addressing what that activity has done to the body, so that you don't end up being dehydrated on your trip or coming home with something as a result. Of course, travel exposes you to other people's bugs. Ooh, some bugs are good. It's good to be exposed to other people's bugs, but when we think about it, it makes me kind of want to just antibacterial wipe my entire body. And the reality of that is that isn't healthy. So what do we do in that space to address it? We also know that traveling can drain our resources. It can be fatiguing. It can make us dehydrated. It can make us emotionally just, feeling like we have nothing left. And I think that that's really important to think about. How can we have check-in points to make sure that we're, addressing that piece? And then it also, of course, brings new temptations. And I am not one to be told that I can't have those temptations. So what I like to do with anyone who, whether it's my Better Nutrition members or whether it's my patients, is it's all about choices. So what are those better, not perfect choices that I'm going to make when I travel? So some of what we want to talk about is what's good support for better digestion before, during, and after your travel. One of the best things that you can do is try to have better digestion at more often in your life. So I have people, whether it's on a quarterly basis, doing the Better Digestive Assessment that's on my membership, doing the tune-up if the assessment reveals that, wow, I don't smell quite as pretty as I should, or I'm noticing that things aren't going in the right direction more often, or I'm feeling like the coffee or the wine is staying with me a little longer than I would like it to. And then when we're traveling, some of the things I mentioned early on, my partner in Natural Vitality, one of the reasons I met them was that I just had to have them with me at all times, because when I would fly in particular, I would just notice that it just shut down everything digestively. And I did what I hear often recommended from whether it's doctors or other practitioners, which is I would say, oh gosh, I'm constipated, I feel bloated, so I must need fiber, right? And oh my goodness, fiber is not what you need when your system is being slowed by the motility of from a travel standpoint. The good news is what you do need is magnesium, and the great news is you can get that in real cacao, which we'll be talking about. But you can also get that in those Natural Vitality packets. And a lot of times I work with my, with my patients, we'll do the magnesium evaluation very specific to their travel. If there's somebody that travels often, so that we can look at when you're traveling, are you getting in that magnesium? And similarly, are you getting in a lot of calcium? And let's make sure we have a better balance to make sure that we're not dealing with creating digestive issues. BYOB, it does not stand for bring your own booze, because as we all know, especially when you're flying, you can't bring your own booze. However, you can bring your own better nutrition. And certainly if you're on a flight, that you might decide that part of your better nutrition might be a cocktail. But what we don't want is that cocktail to be super high in sugar, because then you have this issue of your body's getting a bunch of sugar and you're sitting, right? So we have to work out what our better nutrition options are. But if you choose the glass of wine, then it's smart to say, hey, instead of having it with maybe potato chips or bread, maybe I'll have it with a handful of nuts, or maybe I'll make a better nutrition choice, which we'll talk about in a second what that is, and really look at having that. And maybe it's one that when I have that and I know that it's delicious, then maybe I don't feel like I need the wine or the drink that I was choosing because I wanted something tasty and indulgent. But I think it's important to make sure that you bring things. I bring with me a packet of Nature's Path Kia or Nature's Path oatmeal. Pretty much it's always in my travel bag, so it's pretty much everywhere I travel. And then I bring a packet of hemp seeds. These days I'm loving also the smaller packs of their toasted sriracha hemp seeds, which I love. And what I will do is then I add that to the oatmeal. And yes, I like sriracha in my oatmeal. But then what I also do, and this is where people are going to be like, she has the weirdest taste buds in the world, is that I also will put a shot of espresso in there. And to me, it's deliciousness. And that's what I love to have for, especially it helps me to feel empowered and energized to go have a workout when I'm traveling. And that brings me to the next piece, which is to have a better plan to move your outer body, as well as making sure that the inside body is moving. And so when we talk about that plan, it's going to be like, wow, when I'm traveling, I don't have to get up and walk my dog, or I don't have to get up and immediately start doing certain things. And so as a result, and I also have my gym right downstairs in my hotel. And so maybe that's part of my plan, or maybe now it's traveling with the I have my apps, right? My Yoga Glow app, or I use, if I'm staying at a hotel that has an in-room yoga class, I might be able to do it that way. So it's, figuring out and also identifying ahead of time what that plan might be. We want to pay attention to supporting your immune system before, during, and after as well. So we need to assess and see how our immune system is doing. That's part and parcel of your digestive system, but also your detoxification system. And so one of the things that happens to us when we travel is we're just exposed to more toxins, all right? Not just other people's bugs, but there's stuff in the air. And I have a wood floor at home, and I don't put a rug down, but I also know what I clean my rug with. Well, if I'm staying at a hotel and at a convention center, and what they're cleaning the floor and the place with is going to be giving me exposure to different things. And so instead of stressing about that, which will just turn off my digestive system, I always travel with that True Brock tea, or I like the Ultra Brock, which is a supplement that has turmeric and glucoraphanin, that True Brock, which is going to just make sure that even though I still eat broccoli while I'm out on the road, that I'm getting the benefit of the glucoraphanin from broccoli, just so supportive of my detoxification system, which is going to really help my immune system. And then I have a note here that says have better first line interventions at the ready. So this one is so important to me. So one first line intervention from Beauty Counter, I use my rose water spray, and that's to hydrate my face. And people will be like, well, that's nice that you want to have your face not be dried out, but that's actually a first line intervention, because when your skin, and in particular your face, gets dried out, little cracks can start around your nose and your mouth, and that's where those bugs from other people that are around you, those can get in more easily. So I think that's really important. Another first line intervention for me, I mentioned the natural calm packets before, but also is homeopathic remedies. And I like that because I want to make sure that I'm doing what I can to support my body feeling really good out on the road, but I also am not somebody who, especially because I travel so much, I don't want to be taking a medication every time I travel, right? So I don't use a nasal spray that has a medication in there, but I use a X-Clear that has a xylitol and is just great for moisturizing the inside, the nasal passages. And I use the homeopathic remedies like Acylcoxam or Sabadil from Byron, and I love those because they help me to, at the first blush of, feeling like congested, maybe the room I was in was really dry, or maybe I'm, when I am just sleeping differently, or maybe, I'm not sleeping well, or maybe I decide to have more dairy than I normally would have. All of that can create that congestion. And if I nip it in the bud with those first line interventions, then that's such great preventative health, right? If I need a medication, then absolutely, but it's going to help me, start off with things being a little bit easier on my body. Getting better sleep is about, I don't know if like it's a cruel joke or if hotels, and I say this in jest because I work with a lot of hotels, but I'm always like, how many different lights could you have blinking in this room? Like, is it a contest? So one of the things I do at home is try to remove as many. I actually don't even have a clock facing my bed. I don't sleep with my phone in my room. I don't sleep with my iPad in my room unless I happen to be binging on something with Netflix, in which case I know it's going to impact my sleep. And I try to have darker, curtains and all these things. Well, when we're traveling, we can't do all of that. I can certainly throw towels on top of things, but somebody introduced me recently to one of those eye masks, and wow, you would have thought that like it was a new invention, but I'm totally sold. I also have a sleep bracelet that I use, and then one of the things that I've been doing recently that helps me get better sleep and really helps me with start my day better as well is I travel with my 5-minute journal. And all of these links and information about all these products you can get on my blog. But I love that because before I go to bed, I write down what's 3 things that were awesome that day, as well as it does ask me, how could I have made it better? And it makes me stop and think. And a lot of times I'm in that space of thinking, wow, it was a great day. I couldn't have done anything better. And then I'm like, oh, there's one thing that maybe pops to mind, or I give a little thought, and you know what, then it's done. I go to bed just a clean brain. And same thing starting in the morning. Maintaining hydration on the inside and outside. We're going to talk to Bill a little bit about how ingredients are so important for helping us with hydration, because we think about hydration and we think about water, and water is really important. I talked about the rose water on my face, and obviously our bodies we need to make sure we're getting in enough water. I get that question all the time, how much water should I have? And I have the Better Water evaluation as part of my Better Nutrition membership tool. So if you're worried that you're not getting in enough water, please look at that. But one of the things we have to think about when we're traveling too is not wanting to stop and pee everywhere, but we do want those benefits of hydration. And the great thing is that there are a lot of foods that actually deliver us potassium that is going to help that water get inside the cells and escort in other nutrients along with it. And then the other part is just to be conscious of not getting in too much sodium and making sure that we're not getting, when we have more sodium, that sodium keeps the water outside of the cells, and we want it to go inside the cells more often. And then the final piece is enjoy variety. It's the spice of life. I think that there was probably a time where I thought I could just eat, and I probably still could just exist on the original Perfect Bar flavor, because I just love it. However, what makes me even happier is, there's always a mood for, we have different flavors. I like to think about it like music, and, I absolutely love Guns N' Roses. It is, hands down, and even within Guns N' Roses right there, just different songs and for different moods. But, gosh, there's some times where I'm just such a classical music girl, or like I've just been playing my trumpet and I'm like, oh, I got to go hear, music that's got some great trumpet. And other times where, I love African dance music, etc. And our food and our beverage and our health choices should be that same. And so one of the things that travel does provide for us is this opportunity to interact with new flavors, with new tastes. So one of the pieces that I offer in closing out this section is try something. If you happen to be somewhere and they're like, wow, we put sriracha on our oatmeal, why not try it? And if you dislike it, you can ask them to maybe give you a little bit so you can just taste it and then say no thank you. But you never know, you might discover something that you totally love. So to recap, what is better travel nutrition? Actually, this isn't to recap, it's to introduce what it is and make sure this is recapping what better nutrition is, but I'm highlighting the travel piece as a lead into our conversation about how we can get it and keep it. So first of all, better nutrition always. This is just a 100%. It better be delicious. And the reason it better be delicious, not that it should be delicious, it better be delicious, because the number one reason that my patients will struggle with staying on or doing what it is that we want them to do, what they know works for them, what they know makes them feel better, what they know gets them results, is if it does not taste good. And if it is not delicious to you in that moment, that's a really important thing too. What often happens is people will say to me, like, I was doing this whole like no sugar thing, etc. And then I crashed, that evening. I came home and I had 3 beers, or whatever it is. And it's like, that's because when we deprive ourselves of what is delicious, we go and find what is delicious later. Our mind is genius, and it will remember that it has not been satisfied. And what does not satisfy the mind is somebody telling you it's good for you. Even if it physically makes you feel good, or it doesn't make you feel bad, that isn't enough leverage on your brain. So we've got to make sure that it's delicious. The next one is we want to make sure that things are nutrient balanced. How many times have people sent me bars for Ashley Koff Approved evaluation, and they are saying like, here's a meal replacement, or here's a better energy bar, or here's even worse, a protein bar, and it has like 3 grams of protein. Now, you don't need to have 20 grams of protein, but you do need to have a substantive amount of protein. If you look at the Better Nutrition Plan, you'll see on there, my range is anywhere from 6 to about 15 or 20 grams. And there's bioavailability, and there's different flexibility on, what we need and how much at one time based on somebody's activity, their health, how the body is functioning, how the digestive system is functioning. So if you have any questions about, are you getting in enough protein, or how much protein should you personally have today as part of helping you get where you want to go health-wise, I recommend my Better Protein Evaluation, which is one of the Better Nutrition tools. Better nutrition better be plant-based, because animals need plants in order to do what their bodies need to do. Plants provide all the different colors and as a result, nutrients for cleanup system. We hear the term phytonutrients. That's a big word for plant nutrients. There are plant nutrients that all animals need to get from plants. We might think that we're getting them by eating another animal, but that animal actually ate a plant to get them, so we can really shortcut it and do that part. And so when we make choices about, what we want the base of our diet to be, I think it's really important, and to celebrate things that are totally delicious, again, like nuts and seeds. And, when you're choosing, this is one of my favorite arguments for choosing real sugars, whether it's honey or maple syrup, is that you're actually getting plant nutrition. And when you get that in the organic space, you're actually getting minerals from that, and you're getting, nutrients that will help your body process the sugar better as well. Better be doable. So when we're talking about travel, if it's a liquid and you're flying and you're needing to go through security, it doesn't really help you so much. I have definitely somebody who has thrown back like 2 great beverages standing there because I'm so mad that I paid for them. But then I got to the airport too quickly. I was like, oh no, and we don't want to be doing that to our bodies. So we want to make sure that it's in a doable form. Better be hydrating. I talked about water and potassium. We want to combat stress with magnesium. We want to support better digestion. one of the ways to support better digestion is not having too much at any one time, so not overwhelming the body. So that might be bites, bite sizes more often, or it might be saying, wow, I'm gonna have half of a bar, or wow, the bar works for me better right now than a big salad. And that big salad may be awesome for you, but remember how I talked about, especially with, if you're on a train or you're for a long period of time, or you're on a plane, when your digestion is slower, really breaking down, chewing and breaking down all that food can make you feel more bloated. And so I might turn to something where it's been mixed and blended for you, and that can really engage digestion beautifully and help you get that nutrition. We want to keep our skin healthy and protected, both the skin on our outside of our body as well as the inside of our body. We'll talk a little bit about how nuts and seeds are a great source also of glutamine, which is one of those what we call conditionally essential amino acids, great for the mucosal layer of the digestive tract. And then we want to make sure that we supplement, and that can be in our foods if they're good quality, but we want to make sure that we're doing things to avoid nutrient gaps. So we might not have nutrient gaps at home. I'm really good about having broccoli at home because I feed my dog broccoli every day. And so most days I end up eating the broccoli myself, but out on the road, I might not get the broccoli in, and that's why I'll do the true broc. So I think it's important for us to pay attention to that. Okay, so that all said, I've now set up for us why Perfect Bar really is my perfect travel companion. So Bill, if I don't say it enough, I'm in total gratitude to you and your family, and really to your dad, and gosh, for you guys for all of the work that you did as kids to where you are today, to be able to create this this product that is, I like to use the expression kitchen processed, because I've actually been in your kitchen and seen it all put together. I love looking and seeing all the different colors, and you even have more than those these days. And the minis, like we don't have a picture of that on here, but I remember back in the day, we just got started with a couple of them. And I just think like this notion here of being able to have fresh nutrition that I can grab, I can keep it in my refrigerator as I do. I actually keep your bars in the frozen section. So I don't even know if you know this. You guys are lovely to send me products, but I also order them in gobs, and I put them, because I have a really large freezer, I put them in my freezer so that I don't have to pay shipping costs on it, on a large order. And then I know that I have them available. And especially some of your new chocolate flavors are actually really delicious, coming right out of the freezer also, so I might add these. So welcome. And I guess by way of starting, I wanted to, for anyone who is watching this, we're not going to show the video live now, but please take a moment to download in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see there's the family story. Bill, maybe what we could do is start out and have you tell a little bit of the family story for those that are listening live today.
No, that's great. And first of all, thanks for having me. Actually, we're aligned in our philosophy about better nutrition. That's how we were raised. So basically growing up in tight quarters in a bus, and literally like the Partridge Family, we would travel across the country. My dad would lecture at different universities and bigger gyms, and he would talk about the benefits of whole food nutrition and to your point, better nutrition. What does that mean? How can you use this in a lifestyle? It's one thing to have all of these, great, what you call quote unquote perfect goals of what you're supposed to obtain with different nutrients and proteins, but is it really obtainable? Is it a part of your life? So this bar and this company was founded because my father would travel, like I mentioned, to these different universities, and he needed a way to provide fresh nutrition to his 13 children. And we were all packed in this converted school bus, and we would actually, at the end of his lectures, we would get up on stage and sing. And he calls the Keith Trapp Family Singers. So what he did is he took his whole food supplements, and he had a green supplements, he had a calcium, vitamin C, and a enzyme supplement. He ground them into a powder, blend it with organic nut butter and honey, and he made these little protein balls, and he gave us these delicious refrigerated, which, being refrigerated on the go is tough, right? We had the coolers, and we were able to, all of his different products that he created, these are the bars that we love the most. So When in 2005, when he did a lot of natural tanning when he was younger. He actually won different fitness awards and bodybuilding competitions. But in 2005, because of the natural tanning he did, he ended up getting skin cancer, and it progressively got worse. And so we got together, when I say we, the older siblings, and we said, all right, we settled at this point to a small piece of property up in Northern California. And we said, we're going to lose this property, so let's sell the property, take the equity out, and let's take this bar recipe that we've been eating as kids, that, you know, all entrepreneurs, I feel like, are motivated by, you know, their friends coming to them saying, this is delicious, you should sell these in stores. And at the time, there were 700 different bars on the market. Now there's over 4,000. So to your point, there was a lot then. It just growing by the day now with more and more shows and events that I attend. I'm just seeing more and more companies come forth. And so, you know, what was going to be our niche? Well, we were going to be a fresh bar. And quite honestly, we were ahead of our time. You know, they didn't even have a full variety of kombuchas at the time. This was in 2005. And so when we launched it, we were going to make a cold pressed, high protein, with superfoods added bar that you could take on the go with you. And you know, the first couple years of trying to break into the market was a big struggle. I believe you and I actually met in about year 3 or year 4. I think we met in like 09 or 10, if I remember correctly. And so what was going to put us, you know, what was going to put us on the map? How are we going to strategically go into these different retailers and really educate these consumers one-to-one about better nutrition, and about how to take it with you portably, but being in this fresh set, what would that mean? So we started down this path, and it was literally, and I kid you not, well, you saw it, we had 6 brothers and sisters rolling these bars by hand, mixing them in these Hobart mixers and putting them through these packaging machines. And it was all the finances that we had as a family put into this business. And the first couple of years trying to break into the market was so tough that we thought we were going to fold. We ended up getting into a Whole Foods market up in Northern California, in Berkeley Whole Foods. It's one of those deals where when you have something that you see folks coming to your table saying this is the best bar I've ever tried, it motivates you to get through those lean times. So I was, at one point, I was sleeping in my car, eating the bar. I had plenty of food, and I was showering at 24-Hour Fitness and doing whatever it took to put us on the map. And we, because of the success that we had at a Whole Foods up in Northern California, we were able to get into more Whole Foods. And then, you know, looking past, now it's close to 12 years, the past 12 years, we've been able to leverage and really educate consumers, and primarily through demos. We haven't had a big marketing budget that we've, you know, touted, you know, through TV and other sources. Now back then we were literally educating through demo tables, store to store, making these routes and growing the business with a really big grassroots effort. All my brothers and sisters, we laugh about it because we said, you know, we're all making our way on room and board. I wasn't paying any of them. We were in survival mode. And after those first couple of years and it started to take off, then we looked at it and we said, all right, here, because we had 3 flavors at the time, we expanded that to 2 additional flavors. And then, you know, we've been adding flavors these past 3 or 4 years. And it's came to a point now to where the fresh set has grown, and there's a good 10 to 15 competitors now. And you have, you know, different regional competitors and then also national competitors. And it's great for us because it's adding more of a destination spot in the store. You know, one of the toughest challenges for us is you'd go into the store, you couldn't find it. We were like the Where's Waldo of nutrition bars. So now that we're creating these fresh sets and we're the cornerstone brand in these sets, we've been able to bring in other like items and make it a destination where consumers can go into their Target, Whole Foods, Kroger's, Costco's, and actually have a spot for them to go to and it not be missed because of the other products that were around us. So no, it was unbelievable just being able to take the resources, put it into it, and actually have it take off. There was a lot of challenges that we had to overcome, but we're finally getting to a place that the consumers are ready for it. The education is out there. The efforts that you're doing, it's a good time to be in this set.
I love it. There's so many things. It reminds me too. I'm like, oh, we need to. So much of what so many entrepreneurs, and if you're an entrepreneur, especially in the food space out there, or if you're not in the food space and you're listening, there's so much to talk about that, about like how managing your health during that time period and your faith and your confidence and all of that. But I'm going to keep it because we're talking about travel nutrition. I'm going to keep it in that space. And, I think, and you're right, I do remember because I'm pretty certain that we met through, maybe it was at one of the expos or something. So you were already at a place where you were, far enough along to be able to do that. But I think that story about your dad and deciding to mix this together is so interesting because one of the challenges that I find, and I think we're going backward and forward at the same time. And I'll explain what I hope to mean by that is, I think we came to bars because we wanted convenience. And really at that time, convenience trumped everything. And as I said before, even taste, I think, especially in the early 90s, I was a vegan and I was, running around New York City. And it's like, wow, if there's a bar, I didn't care that it had soy in it. And I say, didn't care about soy. I'm intolerant to soy on that part. And so I was like, wait a second, it didn't matter that I had a bellyache after it. I was like, oh, it's okay. That was a good thing for me to have, and it's like, no, it wasn't. But I think we forgot about that part. And I think suddenly the refrigerator just felt inconvenient. And what I say to people so much right now is your refrigerator and your freezer, what they are able to do for you is to not just deliver convenience, because it means that you have them around instead of having to think about, where can I go? And it's like your bars last me a week on the road without having to, they would never have to be in the refrigerator. But, I do tend to put them in the like in a hotel refrigerator or whatever. But I think that we've come around because the other part of it is they take the place of the added salt, the added sugar, the artificial preservatives, because refrigeration and freezing preserve, right? And so I think it's this really,
yeah, no, so to your point, I mean, refrigeration is nature's oldest method of preservation, right? I mean, when you look at some of the preservatives out there, to your point, soy lecithin emulsifier, a binder that binds oils and proteins together to make product shelf stable. Some of these ingredients are, again, really tough to digest. We think, well, it's the last ingredient on the ingredient list, but when you look at the different products that you're taking, if you're not watching your diet, it really starts to add up. So what we did is we said, okay, we're going to cold press this bar, remove the emulsifiers, and then on top of it, we put in the organic honey. The organic honey is huge for us. It's you find them in the tombs of Pharaoh, and they're it's 4,000 years old, and it's still good as long as you don't have water mixed into honey. It's a great preservative. So no, to your point, it's about looking at these different methods that you can portably take these fresh foods, preserve them in a way that is natural, that it was created to, aid digestion, not have any of the stumbling blocks and some of the pains that you get from eating some of those other foods.
Yeah, and so to that end, and I started to say with your dad, I think it's so interesting that he was at such an early time period. He was so advanced in this space and so aware of wanting to deliver himself and his family better nutrition. And today one of the issues I see with a lot of products that don't get my approval, either my personal approval for consumption and certainly not for Ashley Koff Approved, is just this dropping in. Like somebody could decide to have they could start off like, oh, we're going to have organic peanut butter, or we'll have a protein in there. We'll have, that. And then I see this list of, calcium carbonate, all of these other, and it reads like a bad supplement list. And I see that in protein powders too. So one of the places that's been where your product has been a real game changer for myself and for a lot of my patients is, instead of bringing a shaker cup, a protein powder, like all of that stuff, and trying to put it all together, it's like, oh wait, I can get all of that in here. And this reads more like a salad or like one of these delicious bowls that we might be enjoying. So I thought we would talk a little bit about I am clear, they're dried whole food powders, but they are whole food and they are organic. So let's talk a little bit about the ingredient selection you have on here, 20 plus. For me, organic is the superfoods, but we've got the 20 plus organic superfoods. Obviously things are non-GMO. So how hard is it to get all of these ingredients? And, do you ever find yourself saying, like, we just can't do X because that we won't be able to deliver on that within our space of ingredients? Yeah.
So if you look at the unique list, and to your point, you have the kale, flaxseed, or the rose hip, orange, stuff you're not eating, well, at least some folks are not eating as part of their daily diet. We've come to points where we've said, how are we going to find this organic dulse in the quantity that we need to get it in? With us, it's really important that we remain true to those original foundational food principles that our dad left us. And, to your point, the potassium, the magnesium, getting it from different nuts and vegetables. And for us, when we looked at, replacing some of these items or tweaking them a little, I mean, he was way ahead of his time. And it's all those fruits and vegetables that you don't get a part of your daily diet, and they're desiccated down. They're not they're not heat pasteurized, but they're desiccated to a point to where you can put them into a blend, cold press them, and preserve these foods in a way to where you're still going to have those live nutrients and be able to digest them. So now, I can't take credit for this. We grew up listening to him and him laying out these different food principles. And so it was a natural for us to sort of further that legacy. But, it goes, you look at the list, I mean, dulse, carrot, spinach, these foods that really round it out. And a lot of folks will ask me, well, what kind of concentration level or how much of these amounts am I getting? I always mention, look at some of your main brands, like your Mega Food or different brands are out there, and think about, you get those tablets and grinding one of those tablets up and putting it into a bar,
Yeah, and I think it's so, and so how do you, describe for somebody who hasn't had the opportunity to come to your facility, how that blends in with, you talk about not having the water in there, how does it all blend together into the deliciousness that it's one of the reasons I love your bar is that I love the density of it, and so it doesn't feel, and I'm a texture eater, so it's got a moisture to it, but it doesn't have a grittiness to it that one might think that if they were having a powder mixed in. What do you think is the answer there? Yeah.
The way we're able to do that is through the cold press method, which it's a proprietary method that we've created, where you have a lot of bars out there that are extruded, or they have different methods of forming the bar, and then it'll go through an oven. With us, when we say cold press, literally the ingredients are ground fresh. The proteins and powders are added in there, and without getting too much of the proprietary info away, it by making it instantaneous with the fresh nut butter, with the organic honey, with all the powders, when you there's a clear period of time that you need to put all those ingredients together and then press them and then put it right into the refrigerator. And if you do that within a period of time, and that's where a lot of folks that, will try to, make their own versions of Perfect Bars, which we always encourage. They say, man, I just didn't get it right. What happened there? And we say, well, that's why we're on this end really trying to get out plenty of them, because it's tough to do. And if you look at the whole food concentrates and how much, is added to each bar, and how the process works of going from the freezer to the packager and then keeping that cold chain all the way to the shelf. That's how we're able to lock, we call it locking the freshness in. You know, when we compare our bars on a side-by-side to a lot of the leading brands out there, they go, wow, it tastes moist. A lot of that moistness comes from the honey, but it's not just, you know, you can't have just honey and then the conventional peanut butter. It has to be done in an appropriate time. And so, yeah, it's not just a matter of putting ingredients in and then out comes a bar. There's a way to form it, press it, put cooling to it at different times, and that's how you're able to really get that consistency that you love.
Oh, I love it. So I'm going to geek out a little on the nutrition I get asked a lot by people how to read a label for bars. And we're actually doing it as we sit here. We're talking about the ingredients first. And I think that's so important, and reminding people that the ingredients that are at the closest to the word ingredient are going to be the ones that come first and in highest quantity. One of the other things I think is really important is to debunk that, you know, I love the rationale behind a lot of the nutrition recommendations is to try to simplify things, but we can really oversimplify it. And so, you know, whether somebody says to eat only the perimeter of the store, like, you know, I break these down all the time. And so one of them is like, okay, if you have more than 5 ingredients, don't eat a product that has more than 5 ingredients. And if I, you know, come over here and say, well, dulse, carrot, and spinach, you bet I want that getting into you, you know? So, you know, we want to make sure that you don't disregard that piece. The other thing is there's a blend of seed oils and butternut and the nuts in here. You know, when we talk about being plant-based, if you're accessorizing with organic dairy, the organic egg powder, that's going to be a great option for you. Perfect Bar, I'm looking at one recipe here, has several recipes that are vegan, so that's also great for somebody who wants, you know, exclusively the plant option. But, you know, one of the things I get from people is they'll say to me, well, I don't know, that's a lot of calories. And so remember, everyone, if you were to, so I don't use the term meal or snack, I use the term better nutrition pit stop. And one of the things I think can be the worst for us is to go to that 100 or 150 calorie space that we were marketed to for so long, and have something as a way that then sets us up to be really hungry or even hangry, and certainly not to be getting in all the nutrients that we need, especially from a fat standpoint. So one of the ways people were really able to do the 100 or 150 calories was to make something fat-free. And we know that that's so flawed because the fats are going to be what helps us to, first of all, they make it the texture delicious, you know, these pieces, but they also help us to absorb all of, or a lot of the great plant nutrients that you're finding in things like orange and lemon and papaya, you know, and all of that. So I think that piece, and noting the fat content, you know, the fact that it's higher, but look at that monounsaturated fat. I mean, this is about as Mediterranean as any recipe out there could get, you know, so our friends in Greece and Italy and, you know, all of their great research on how brain healthy and heart healthy it is for you. And, you know, I think that's so important when we're thinking about what we want to have for ourselves, for our kids, for healthy aging, any of that space. I want to highlight, because this is a great opportunity. I don't often get this opportunity with labels, this sodium and potassium right here. So you know, there are bars that have been sent to me that are, you know, 300 and 400 milligrams of sodium, where they're, you know, on par with a soup. And it's too much. But, you know, there are times where you might, especially if you're on the road, where you might make the soup, like maybe there's a great lentil soup and you're like, you know what, that is my better nutrition option, better, not perfect. It might be a little bit high in salt. And what we want to do is we just want to make sure that we're counteracting that with a good source of potassium. And so here you're actually getting as much, if not more, potassium than a banana. But in a banana, you would only be getting the addition, you wouldn't get any of the healthy fats. You'd have to add that on top. And then you would be getting the carbohydrate. And so this is a great way. Keep in mind, in a day, in any given day, we're meant to be getting about 4,700 milligrams of potassium. So I'm not recommending right now that you eat 10 Perfect Bars, but what I am saying to you is very few things will deliver that 480, 500. And remember, that's responsible for escorting that water inside the cells, along with all the nutrients that are water soluble. So I just love that, you know, on that piece. I love that you're getting, this is a really great dose of fiber. I'm careful for somebody to not have upwards of, maybe depending on their digestive system, 5 or 10 grams of fiber is a great range. When you're traveling, you might be able to tolerate a little bit more of that when you're traveling, depending on what your personal digestive system is like. But I prefer that people get in, if we're looking at a minimum of 25 grams in a day, that you're getting that, you're spacing that out at different pit stops. And I think that part is so important. And then I think it's great for us to talk about the sugar because, I mentioned it before, I'm actually doing a TV segment tomorrow on artificial sweeteners and then even natural non-caloric sweeteners, which I hesitate to even use the word natural in front of them, but they are not artificial. So I think we have to use that word. But our bodies recognize and absolutely love getting in not just the sweet taste, but also from sugar, getting in the sugar. It's going to be really quick, easy fuel for the brain and for the body. And so as long as we're not getting too much at one time, that part's going to work really well for us. And when you get in organic honey, you're also supporting the digestive system, you're supporting the immune system. So many great pieces there. But I want to help people make sure, because 18 grams could feel like, whoa, I'm getting way too much. And so I want us to just put this in the context. So the World Health Organization recommends, and I choose the World Health Organization because quite frankly, I don't think that we have a better medical or a health standard around sugar here in the country. So I think that this is a great one. It's very approachable for the healthy individual. This would be a different conversation if somebody was diabetic or has something else going on health-wise. But we want to be under about 6 teaspoons of added sugar in any given day. And so one of the things to understand about a label where it says sugars, and I'm going to have Bill explain this part in a little bit more detail, is that it's not just the honey that's applying to that sugar number there. And we'll talk about that in a second. But what we want to understand is 6 teaspoons, 1 teaspoon is equivalent to 4 grams. So in this space, we're falling into a very comfortable space for us. We even have a couple of teaspoons that are left over. And what I think is so important about that part is a lot of times when I have people who will grab like an oatmeal maybe, maybe then they're putting a little sugar or they're putting dried fruit on top of it or, adding a little bit of milk or et cetera. I will see things that are from a travel standpoint that are in the 30 grams plus, in this space. And so I think it's really important for us to just understand, sort of what that sugar number looks like. So Bill, one of the things, if you're comfortable talking about that I love, focusing on is also when you look at that sugars number and the total carbohydrate, how your recipe, it's just like a recipe at home, but how that recipe, aligns on that part.
Yeah, so, first of all, not all sugar is created equal. And I think that's some of the misconception that you do a great job pointing out, Ashley, is like, if you're looking at organic honey compared to table sugar, with us, to your point, we're getting our sugar from multiple sources. You got the lactose from the milk. You have, if you look at the carbs on a carbs total, and not that we're carb watching necessarily, but a lot of bars out there will have close to double the carbs that we have, but because of the sweetener, a lot of runners and endurance athletes, they're doing the honey dips, they're doing the gel sticks, they need that quick boost, but they also need that protein to back it up. So that's why we designed that way. And I think my dad did a great job of, saying, okay, we got to make sure if this is going to be a quote unquote snack or meal on the road, it's got to be balanced accordingly. And the honey also acts as a glue, a natural glue to bind all those powders and everything together. So, we'll have some folks calling in saying, you know what, can we lower the sugar? And so we have lower sugar options, lower calorie options, but there's no synthetic we're not adding the xylitols, we're not adding those stevias and such. Part of our philosophy is we're going to use whole foods, and literally the bar looks the same, but it just weighs lighter because the puff rice in there. So, or the different puff ingredients. So that's, for some folks, that's a stumbling block, but for others that sort of understand how to use this sweetener and not to have that sugar bomb, but to break it up during the day so that you can provide that energy, that's really important.
Yeah, I love that. And I will say, so first of all, I just happen to love, it says light on it. I just happen to love that bar and the flavor. Again, it's leading with better nutrition, you know, with the better nutrition, better be delicious.
Yep.
But also for those of you that want to be able to, and sometimes this is me where it's, hey, I actually don't want I'm not looking for the bar, the meal replacement, but wow, I want to make something like I did this the other day. I did salad greens, toasted hemp seeds with sea salt, olive oil on it. And I was like, okay, but I kind of still want something. And then I was like, high five, I'm so smart. I have my Perfect Bar minis in the freezer. And so then there is that 100-calorie. And oh, by the way, you have clients for life in my niece and nephew because they think that their aunt is like, and then I showed them the AKA on the back and they're like, this is the greatest thing ever. So I was like, oh, it made me so happy. And we were talking about just, you know, how, I mean, my niece for her, she keeps saying that it's, she's 10, she's like, this is like cookie dough, you know? So I love that notion of just feeling like it's better cookie dough. I had the same thing from one of the segments that I did. I was talking about prenatal nutrition, and one of the woman on there was like, oh my gosh, she's like, I'm so happy for all my pregnant friends, you know, that now we have this. And, you know, so I feel like that part is so great. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So I think we've gone through them. I just wanted to see, we talked about the refrigerator. And, you know, I think the kelp piece, so we've been talking about dulse and kelp. If you're one of my Better Nutrition members, you know that I'm extremely passionate about sea vegetables, but I'm also really concerned about the quality of sea vegetables that people consume. I see as popular as seaweed has become, there's a lot of non-organic seaweed and questionable sourcing seaweed. And, you know, I'm not just worried, it's not like I'm worried about glyphosate being sprayed on things. I'm worried about, you know, heavy metals and other things.
Right.
And if you're one of my members, then you would, this week I actually did a Better Nutrition lesson on that part. But so was it a taste balance thing where it was, we want a little of the umami, or we want to balance the sweet and the salty, or what caused you to bring in the dulse and the kelp? Was that more the nutrition side, or was it a flavor thing? Yeah.
So no, it's based off of just adding those different nutrients. And again, it's small dosages, right? So our idea is adding those nutrients to complete the other nutrients, and as a whole, sort of build that nutritional, you know, some folks call it auric value or wherever you want to call it. The kelp and dulse, that was, again, I have to attribute my father. He had a line of green tablets that had, you know, the different sea lettuces, the different spinach and kale, and it was all ground in cauliflower, all ground into a desiccated form, and he had it in tablet version. So when we came up with this recipe, we looked at sort of the 4 pillars of what we wanted in there. And so when you look at these superfoods, you really need to think about the enzymes that you're getting, right? Because you have the different foods that are rich in enzymes. You need to think about the vitamin C. You know, we have the rosehip in there, small amounts, but you also need to look at the calcium, and then you need to look at your iron and your greens. And so that's sort of what led to this formulation and really trying to create that balance. I will say a lot of buyers across the country, they look and you can pronounce all of these different foods. They're a wide variety. You probably wouldn't eat it every day, but you know, the dulse is the one that they go, what is that? You know, not a lot of folks know what dulse is.
Yeah.
And, you know, they think, is that a preservative or, you know, to your point, why do you add that? And really it comes down to just the, you know, really rounding out the nutritional spectrum with this bar.
Yeah, it's so nice because it's alkaline forming. It gives you, and I would say with rosehip personally, you only want a little. So I love that, you know, that it is just a little. And for those of you, as I said, for everyone, please go ahead and watch the family video. You will see that certainly this family has not suffered for nutrients. They are all tall, extremely healthy. Certainly you deliver on your, you know, Southern California, but also knowing you guys for this long, it's always a pleasure to just see how much real authentic energy you bring to it. So I love that part. And I grew up with only 2 siblings and we didn't travel that much, but whenever we were in the car, my poor parents, I might say, you know, and I love my brothers in that way. And so I wanted to bring this to a close a little bit with, you know, whether we're talking, somebody listening is, you know, thinking about better nutrition for their family when they're traveling, or they're just thinking about sort of dealing with other people in their space. And, you know, I was talking about in the beginning that travel can bring its unique challenges of just sort of being forced into spaces with people and, you know, all of that stuff. So I'm wondering if there were any tips that you acquired out on the road with your family that,
oh gosh,
you know,
well, when there's 13 kids, you don't really get to have preferences. You know what I mean? But growing up, I think our parents did a great job of teaching us that food can be both nutritious and delicious. And of course, like any kids, we didn't like eating our veggies, but that's why, you know, they got creative and with the different flavors that we had, because originally we had the peanut butter, we had the fruit nut and the carob chip. So you had the carob chip, which is sort of delivers on that chocolate flavor. You had sort of the mixed nut, like trail mix fruit nut version. And then you had, for all those peanut lovers, you just had that, you know, the original peanut butter is so delicious. And that's, for me, I really rotate back and forth between peanut butter and carob chip. But, you know, my brothers and sisters, I think one of the best parts about having this family inclusion is that you get a wide variety of tastes and likes. And so they were basically dad's guinea pigs, and they're my brothers and sister. We all got together and we'd say, hey, this needs to be tweaked, this needs to be tweaked, until we had as good as a consensus as you can have with that many family members. And I think that was part of the reason that we were able to sort of reach that, you know, nirvana, quote unquote, and that eating that and really deliver on that taste is because we had, you know, so many picky brothers and sisters that would, you know, say, no, I don't like this, I do like this, and it caused for us to really keep tweaking the recipe until we got it right.
I love that. Yeah, I think about it. It's like, wow, if my family, and then adding quite a few, were the taste testers for a product, you know, you really, to get consensus, that would take a lot. So I really appreciate it. Yeah. So I'm going to conclude with one final that I didn't share in here, but, you know, ever since Robin and I started doing our podcast, and if people have not listened, it's Takeout with Ashley and Robin, we love asking this question of our guests. And so I'm going to conclude by asking it. So Bill, if you were a food, what would you be and why?
Oh, wow. Okay. Let's see. I would be, you know what? I would be honey. And the reason I would be honey is because I'm sweet. No, it's too easy. I would be honey because honey is sort of, I feel like, has stood the test of time. You know, again, I go back to the tombs in Pharaoh's times, and honey used to be traded as currency back and forth, you know, in the early ancient times. And honey is just, it's an amazing preservative. Again, you know, it's a sugar that basically forces the water out, and any yeast or bacterial cells that could otherwise contaminate food. It's an antimicrobial, and it just, to me, it's that perfect food, you know. And so I would have to say honey. That's why, you know, whenever folks come to me with the sugar question, oh, sugar, you know, I have to watch it. As sweet as I am, I could get a little hot tempered on that, because I just think it is that perfect food, and it really delivers. And it's a tough food to source. I mean, we have to go all around the world trying to find, you know, that organic honey. What organic entails too, and what that means as far as the bees and the travel pattern, in order to make sure that they're not, you know, pollinating different pesticide fields. I mean, there's a lot that goes into making that pure honey.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. And I was actually just talking to someone about the whole experience. You know, it started with a conversation about organic cotton and why organic cotton is so important to bring back to the States. Yes. And then it really cycled into, we forget what that means for how foundational that is for so many other ingredients that we're looking for. I, for one, am thrilled. So first of all, I love that description of you. I feel that it works so well. And I, for one, am so grateful that you take the sugar issue straight on, because I think first of all, I think it's silly when we talk about those ingredients as sugar and don't talk about them in their totality of what they can deliver, but also, when you use something that is better quality, you're able to use a better quantity of it, and of course deliver better deliciousness, which is, as I keep saying, is the key to better nutrition. So Bill, thank you. I want to remind everyone, first of all, if you are listening to this after the fact, that I will be answering, we are running out of time, so I'm going to be answering some questions that had come up on Facebook so you can check out the video and the video link there. Our link is always on YouTube, and it will be up there shortly. But more importantly, if this has created an appetite for Perfect Bars, anything near what mine is, then I would suggest a couple of things. One is on my website, there is a partners and offers section. And so I have a wonderful code there, and you can order directly from Perfect Bar. So that is great. You can order from Amazon. You can also get in many, many different stores. I tend to find you guys on my end, I tend to find you most frequently in my Whole Foods in the refrigerated section. I'm very excited that many of the, whether it's the Bar 3s or some of the other independent fitness centers, are now carrying your products. So I walk in, I'm like, oh, I know I'm going to love this class. You guys sell Perfect Bars. So I think there are so many places. But Bill, where else do you suggest people turn to find your product?
Yeah, so perfect timing. Trader Joe's is launching July 1st, so you can find our products in Trader Joe's. We're in about 500 to 700 Targets, and so Kroger, from a national perspective, Kroger, we're in a majority of those, or we're in a good part of those. We're in Safeways. We're also in Whole Foods nationwide. And then we're in Costco. If you're looking for that pack deal, obviously Costco has great deals. We have a variety pack there that offers some of our top flavors. We're in 5 regions of Costco, so most parts throughout the country. But again, look, if you're going into a store, the biggest sort of challenge that we constantly are educating and trying to overcome, go to your kombucha set, go to your dairy and produce sets, and we're there. And we're creating that fresh set. So a lot of folks will hear this and they'll go to the bar aisle, and just to reiterate, we're not there. We're in the fridge, and the reason we're in the fridge is what we explained. So
love it. Thank you, Bill. Always a pleasure. I hope to see you soon. I'm really excited, by the way, too. Before we started the slides, we were chatting privately about some new products. So
yes.
Make sure that you follow Perfect Bar on social media. And actually, they have an extremely active, not just on the social media. You guys are active and have beautiful photos, and always make me hungry when I see them. But also remind me to be active, because I love many of the activities that you guys show off. You just had a bunch of great poses about International Yoga Day, but also you have a newsletter that people can sign up for, that they will be the first ones to know about new products. So
absolutely,
I definitely recommend that people check that out too.
Yep. No, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure, Ashley, and look forward to next time you're in Southern California. We need to give you another tour. It's been a while.
Absolutely. I know, for sure. Thank you. Matt, back over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Bill. Like Ashley said, be sure to check out Facebook and social media for the Perfect Bar giveaway, a chance to win a nice package there. Also next month, July, come check out our webinar, A Better Plant-Based Diet, July the 27th. So until then, once again, thank you, Bill. Thank you, Ashley. And we will see you all next month.